You mentioned mainstream and fringe. There seems to be a tension here, and I wonder what your philosophy is on it. Because there's mainstream ideas and there's fringe ideas. You look at lab leak theory for this virus. There could be other things we can discuss where there's a mainstream narrative. Well, if you just look at the percent of the population or the population with platforms, what they say, and then what is a small percentage in opposition to that, and what is Wikipedia's responsibility to accurately represent both the mainstream and the fringe, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think we have to try to do our best to recognize both, but also to appropriately contextualize. And so this can be quite hard, particularly when emotions are high. That's just a fact about human beings. I'll give a simpler example because there's not a lot of emotion around it. Like our entry on the moon doesn't say, some say the moon's made of rocks, some say cheese. You know, who knows? That kind of false neutrality is not what we want to get to. Like that doesn't make any sense. But that one's easy. Like we all understand. I think there is a Wikipedia entry called something like "The moon is made of cheese," where it talks about this is a common sort of joke or thing that children say or that people tell to children or whatever. You know, it's just a thing. Everybody's heard "moon's made of cheese," but nobody thinks, wow, like Wikipedia is so one-sided, it doesn't even acknowledge the cheese theory. I'd say the same thing about flat Earth, you know, again.
That's exactly what I'm looking up right now.
Very little controversy. We will have an entry about flat Earth theorizing, flat Earth people. My personal view is most of the people who claim to be flat earthers are just having a laugh, trolling, and more power to them. Have some fun, but let's not be, ridiculous. But
of course, for most of human history, people believe that the Earth is flat. So the article I'm looking at is actually kind of focusing on this history. Flat Earth is an archaic and scientifically disproven conception of the Earth's shape as a plane or disk. Many ancient cultures subscribe to a flat Earth cosmography with pretty cool pictures of what a flat Earth would look like. With dragon, is that dragon? No, angels on the edge. There's a lot of controversy about that. What is on the edge? Is it the wall? Is it angels? Is it dragons? Yeah. Is there a dome?
And how can you fly from South Africa to Perth? Because on a flat Earth view, that's really too far for any plane to make it.
What I want to know,
it's all spread out.
What I want to know is what's on the other side, Jimmy. What's on the other side? That's what all of us want to know.
Yeah.
So there's some. I presume there's probably a small section about the conspiracy theory of flat Earth, because I think there's a sizable percent of the population who at least will say they believe in a flat Earth.
Yeah,
I think it is a movement that just says that the mainstream narrative, to have distrust and skepticism about the mainstream narrative, which to a very small degree is probably a very productive thing to do. It's part of the scientific process, but you can get a little silly and ridiculous with it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's exactly right. And so, I think I find on many, many cases, and of course, I, like anybody else, might quibble about this or that in any Wikipedia article, but in general, I think there is a pretty good sort of willingness and indeed eagerness to say, oh, let's fairly represent all of the meaningfully important sides. So there's still a lot to unpack in that, right? So meaningfully important. So, people who are raising questions about the efficacy of masks. Okay, that's actually a reasonable thing to have a discussion about, and hopefully we should treat that as a fair conversation to have, and actually address which authorities have said what, and so on and so forth. And then, there are other cases where it's not meaningful opposition, like you just wouldn't say I doubt if the main article, Moon, it may mention cheese, but probably not even because it's not credible and it's not even meant to be serious by anyone. Or the article on the Earth certainly won't have a paragraph that says, well, most scientists think it's round, but certain people think flat. Like, that's just a silly thing to put in that article. You would want to sort of address, that's an interesting cultural phenomenon. You want to put it somewhere. So this goes into all kinds of things about politics. You want to be really careful, really thoughtful about not getting caught up in the anger of our times, and really recognize. So I always thought, I remember being really kind of proud of the U.S. at the time when it was McCain was running against Obama,
Hmm.
because I thought, I've got plenty of disagreements with both of them, but they both seem like thoughtful and interesting people who I would have different disagreements with. But I always felt like, yeah, like that's good. Now we can have a debate. Now we can have an interesting debate, and it isn't just sort of people slamming each other, personal attacks, and so forth.
And you're saying Wikipedia also represented that?
I hope so. Yeah, and I think so in the main. Obviously, you can always find debate that went horribly wrong because there's humans involved.